Here with a very special guest today. I'm pleased to have here with me Nia Trinidad, former Hilo Vulcans outfield pitcher. I know that you played softball this year for Hilo. I know that you're finishing up this semester. I believe you're in your sophomore season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about playing at Hilo and the experience. But first I got to ask you, you come from Riverdale, California. What has that journey been like to you?
Rocklin, California, which is like 30 minutes from Sacramento. I was recruited by our former coach, Coach Callan Pereira, and he really sold Hilo's program to me because it's not easy, like leaving home, and my family wanted me to stay close, but then after talking to Callan and stuff, he really sold the family aspect to both me and my parents, and then that made me make my decision to come over to Hilo. My high school coach, his daughter, actually played with Callan, and he helped me get in with Coach Callan. So it was very nice to be able to have those connections to get there. It was very weird coming in because I came in during the COVID year. We didn't have a fall season, so we basically jumped right in.
You mentioned about your journey from California to Hilo. What has your experience been like playing at Hilo and playing for the Vulcans in softball?
I've had two very, very different years. So under Callan, we were basically sort of thrown into just playing games, getting to know the team very, very quickly. I was brought in with 4 class of 2020 kids my age, and then 2 transfers. We're forced to sort of jump into Hilo's team culture without really knowing anybody, without anybody really reaching out to us. And so it was sort of just a weird turnaround. Expected us to know what was going on when we came there that year, and we didn't come in the fall. No one really knew each other, and we only played HPU and Chaminade 12 games each, and so it was very repetitive and very it seemed like very routine once we get through everything. But then we came into this year, Coach Callan retired, Aisha Sueda came in, and we got a fall season, which was very new for basically the whole team because we lost 7 seniors last year, and we took in 9 freshmen, very, very new to the whole situation. And so we got new coaches, and we finally got a fall. That was a lot for us too, because none of us really knew what was going on, and we were adjusting to a new coach, and we were get a new field and everything like that. And so that was all hectic. And we finally get into spring, and it's just everything sort of we got up to this situation, we got up to this season, and it still feels like it's just piling on instead of oh, we're finally here.
Yeah, talk about the 2 coaches. 2 different coaches, both do different styles.
Coach Callan we had very different styles of softball. I feel like coming from the mainland, we have a very modern, especially California, we have a very modern idea of softball. Coach Callan drove in old ideas of softball, which was fine, but then we would sort of do the same things over and over again. It was sort of just everything worked for us, and we would get things done, and everything we would be in and out. Coach Callan, out of all the people, he still reaches out to me from time to time, and I know that he cares about all of his girls, and that he cares about what they're doing, and just keeping in touch with all of them. My relationship with Coach Aisha was just kind of weird. She was very close with all the local girls. I didn't really talk to her personally. I just sort of know her as a coach. She came in with a very new idea of softball. I don't think she wanted to have the same ideas as Coach Callan. A very weird change. And she also brought in another strength and conditioning coach that she had coached before.
You decided to step away from softball due to mental health.
My sophomore year of high school is when I really realized that there was something going on with me mentally. I finally, over quarantine and COVID in 2020, I finally got medicated for anxiety and depression. And so I knew I finally was aware of my mental health, things that could help me. Softball sort of always been a positive outlet for me to sort of get away from life for a while and just play softball, throw a ball, hit it, get away from the reality of what's going on. But then I realized, so throughout fall, I was persistent on trying to get better because I did not play a lot last year under Coach Callan, and I wanted to be a sort of driving force as a pitcher or as an outfielder, wherever our team needed me. And so I put a lot of work for softball, and I'm a computer science major, so that was also very difficult. I found myself trying to balance rigorous things. It sort of got overwhelming, and I almost wasn't eligible to play in this past spring season because of my grades, because I just couldn't handle it from that point. But then things were moved around and I was able to be eligible for this spring. And I played in 3 games. I played 1 out against Western Oregon, 2 outs against HPU, 1 inning Chaminade, and that was it. And then I found myself just very overwhelmed by everything that was going on. Had a very long talk with my parents about how I was doing mentally. And they said that if you need to step away, you should step away, because they saw me sort of falling into like this sort of hole that they haven't seen me go into. They didn't want to see me go any further. And so I quit around the time that Katie Mayer, the soccer player from Stanford, was announced that she had committed suicide. And so it was a very big topic, like among me and my parents. We were all talking about it. And it was very like important that I stepped away at that time too. It was sort of like a wake-up call. As a student athlete, we're pushed to our very ends all the time. We're not really allowed to show weakness. We see vulnerability as sort of a weakness. And us as student athletes, and even coaches are super important in our and how we're brought up as athletes. We need to understand that, yes, you can be pushed as a student athlete physically, but you should also be aware of your mental health and be able to speak about that to your team and to your coaches. Because if you don't have that balance, it's going to be hard to make it out of anything at any level. I think I had the same mental health problems that I did in high school, but my high school coach was very understanding, and he sort of gave me everything that I needed to like get out of there, and gave me time to like get out of funks that I was feeling during the time, and we were able to push through them together, which was very important. I feel like no one should have to struggle with their mental health alone, because that's the worst feeling that you could feel. Like there are so many people who are going through the same thing that you are, and if you just reach out, you'll realize that you're not alone. Because I've talked to a lot of my former teammates that are playing at D1, D2, and they're feeling like after they saw about me not playing softball anymore because of my mental health, they're like, I feel the same way, or I know teammates that are feeling the same way, like how can I help? And it's sort of just, it's sad that we do so much for like physical pain. We know what to do when someone has a concussion. We know what to report. We know that we need to go talk to a trainer. But if someone is going through something mentally, so it's just important to say that you're not alone, basically.
Now, on a positive note, when you were growing up, you're from California, of course. Let's kind of go back on early beginnings of your career. When you were growing up, was softball a sport that you wanted to pursue for the future? Did you have any other career goals in mind?
The reason that I actually started playing softball was because my brother, he's 3 years younger than me. He started playing baseball. He started playing t-ball. And I got jealous because he was getting way more attention than I was. So I was like, Dad, I want to play softball. And he was like, okay. And they didn't think that I'd make it past, because I was doing like ballet and gymnastics and all that stuff when I was little. But then right when I started playing softball when I was 9, and I didn't stop until this year. So I've been playing for 11 years, and it's been something that I've loved, and I still do, obviously. But I won a section championship with my high school in my junior year, and like we had so much fun, and it's still like something that I will always like enjoy and remember like growing up, because my dad was my coach for like 5 years. I was the coach's kid. I had so much to prove to people, and it was just a lot of fun when I was growing up in California. I was very like zoned in for softball. Like I was 12 when I went into competitive softball, and we were just I knew that I wanted to play college and play softball in college. I knew that was a goal that I wanted to reach, and it would help me like academically too. And I thought I was going to have so much fun playing softball and doing school wherever it may take me. My favorite thing about softball is that basically I get a new second family every single year, and I get to make these new relationships with girls that I've never even met before. I've met some of like my best friends playing softball here in California. There are people I still keep in touch with that I played softball with when I was 10 or like 9. It's just the relationships that I've made with softball, and then just growing as a person has made it something that I've really loved.
Now I gotta ask you, you come from California, you go to Hilo. How have you enjoyed being in Hilo compared to California? And if there's anything that you miss?
They're very two different environments, and both of them are very like, they're both good, but they're both very different. Hilo, we're very, very calm. I think that's just the Hawaii vibe. Everything's sort of laid back. Of course, as athletes, we're gonna push each other and like work hard and stuff like that. But when I was in California, I played on a team that was 2 hours away from where I lived, and we'd only practice once a month for 6 hours, and we just go at it like for days, rigorous. And I feel like softball in California is very competitive, and we have a small community, so everybody sort of knows each other. So moving out here where no one knew who I was and no one really cared who I was until I made a mark here at Hilo. And so it was just very two different vibes, and it sort of like I was like up here in California, and then it felt like I was starting over in Hilo.
Tell us about Rocklin, California. What's it like being over there?
In California, I sort of call it like a little bubble because it was very safe, very nice. I went to a predominantly white high school, Whitney High School. Me and my brother grew up running around Rocklin, and old rec ball field was a walk away from my house, and so I'd always be there. It was a very tight-knit community. I feel like if you go to Rocklin and you see a softball player, they will know who I am, or they'll know who my dad is, because my dad and I made such a big impact on that scene for so long. I don't even know it's there. Like, it's sort of just suburban neighborhood and there's a lot of farms. That was how I grew up.
So you've been playing softball for quite some time. Are there any memorable experiences in your career? Anything that stands out to you the most?
My junior year of high school, I helped lead my team to a section championship. I wasn't the starting pitcher my sophomore year on varsity, but then when I moved up my junior year, I was able to be given the opportunity to be the starting pitcher after we beat our rivals for the first time. And it sort of just kept going, and we kept playing and we kept winning, which was really exciting. And then right when we got to that section championship, it was just a fun time. And it's a team that I always look back on, because everyone sort of had each other's backs. We were like a big family with that team. It was very special to me.
I mentioned about high school, having a great memorable experience there. What about in the Hilo?
Last year we went to regionals, and we were the 4 or 5 seed Concordia, and we had lost to them twice in the pod championship by 1 run each time. The one time that I got to pitch last year was against Concordia. I went in bases loaded with 2 outs, and their top hitters were up, and I was able to get out of that inning, and then we got out, and I shut down their 3, 4, 5 hitters, and that was very exciting. But then we're playing Concordia. Our whole team is ready. We're super hyped. First times that I really felt like part of Hilo's team, the same mindset that we wanted to beat Concordia, and we wanted to take it as far as we could go. And we went out there, and our 3-hitter hit a home run off of one of their aces, and we were going crazy, and we were having such a good time. And right when our pitcher, our ace, came in and closed out that game, we got so excited. If you watch videos of that game, you would see that it seemed like we won regionals, but that was super exciting, and it was fun to be a part of that.
Now, I know that you stepped away from softball during this time, but do you think that we'll see a return?
I would like to, but I think that I have a lot to figure out with my mental health before I try and return. If I did, I would want to walk on somewhere, or try to walk on somewhere. Plan right now is to take a gap semester in the fall and try and go to classes at the community college in Rocklin in the spring, and then see how my grades are, how I'm doing mentally, and sort of go from there. I don't want to leave softball on this note.
Is there a difference of being an outfielder and a pitcher? I mean, which do you prefer?
I chose to be a pitcher because I wanted the ball in my hand every single moment I could. It was either that or catching. But I was like, you need to choose, and we need a pitcher, so you're going to pitch. And so I think pitching is very, very mentally challenging, and you have to be tough. You have to have a short memory, because if you walk one batter, you can't remember that coming at your next batter, or else you're not going to do as good as you believe. And that's what I found exciting. I sort of took that anxiety as adrenaline, and it was just sort of exciting for me. I liked that anxiety, that pressure, because everyone was sort of like, everyone's sort of depending on you to be good as a pitcher. That's what I liked about it. But as an outfielder, I took the outfield position as little because there were just two pitchers that were way better than me in rec ball. Our coach was like, you should learn outfield because you're a good hitter. They put me in right field. You just read balls differently. I think outfield is something that if you fly balls and you're like, this is kind of hard. And so I sort of was like a utility for a very long time. I would say I still am, but it was sort of just, I took on any responsibility that the team needed me to do because that's how all of my coaches sort of practice us. And so although they're very different and like, I'm definitely a better pitcher than I am fielder or outfielder, I'll still work at any that someone will throw at me.
Is there anybody out there that is a big inspiration to you?
Danielle Laurie, she was a pitcher for Washington. She's a mom now, but as a mother, she's like a mother of two, I'm pretty sure. And she went to the Olympics for Canada this past year, killing it after taking like a few years off. Just she like posts all of her progress all the time and all of her workouts leading up to the Olympics. Even though she was a D1 pitcher, a successful D1 pitcher at Washington, she went through so much that people didn't really know about until she was open about it years later. And so that was a very like big thing for me.
So presently you're still in school, and I know that you're getting your studies out the way and you're doing what you got to do with that. What can we expect from you in the near future?
I don't really have a plan. I want to do a lot of things, but I just sort of, my first goal is to get my mental health in check, but then I will have more of a plan. But right now I've sort of opened a lot of doors for myself. Graphic design since high school, videography. I took the computer science route in college just because I wanted to be sort of well-rounded. I have basic knowledge of coding and how that works. And so I have a lot of opportunities ahead of me, especially living in California too.
And as far as a message to Hilo,
I'm grateful to be able to have the opportunity to play college softball and to meet all these girls on the team. And I love them so much. I still come out to their games and watch. I'm really close with some of our coaches still. Like they'll still say hello to me. So I'm very grateful for that experience and the relationship built with Hilo. And I'm sad that it had to come to an end early. I think those who are close to me understood that it was the right choice, and those who weren't sort of just didn't find importance in that. So it was thank you to those who cared, basically.
Pleasure to have you here, Nia. Wishing you all the best in your career, and hoping all goes well.
Thank you for having me.